Good morning and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am Castle Keeper Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today's video is a continuation of the class spotlight for Castles and Crusades, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Cleric. So I actually found, this really nice representation of a female dwarven cleric, and the reason being is that my one of my players is looking to play a dwarven cleric. I'm assuming that she's going to be playing a female dwarven cleric since her current character in my AD&D campaign is a female druid. So nice change up for her, as well as changing character class and a race as well. She's a half elf. The taboo half elf. She's a half elf. A half elven druid, and so now she's going with a dwarven cleric. So really excited about the launch of this new campaign with a different game system. So really excited to start delving into that. So without further ado, let's start taking a look at the cleric in Castles and Crusades. So here we go, and I will make this larger so you can read along as well. So a cleric is a wisdom-based class, obviously, which means that when you select a cleric, your primary attribute automatically becomes wisdom, and then you'll have either a second or a third based on player choice and based on the player's choice of race as well. So in this instance, a dwarven cleric would have a wisdom and then only one other choice of a primary attribute, because demi-humans only get one chosen, and then the other is class-based. So, upon the fields of battle where good and evil struggle, there stride holy warriors dedicated to the service of a deity, their martial ability enhanced by divine dispensation. They obey the will of the gods and influence others through faith in their deity's tenets, actions on the field of battle, and by bringing justice or retribution to their foes. Clerics are warrior priests. They are religious by nature and can be found in the service to a pantheon of deities or eternally bound to service only one. To serve only one. From their deity or deities, the cleric receives divine powers and act as conduits of power of their deity upon the planes of men. Yet these powers come at a high cost in service, devotion, loyalty. A cleric's divine connection to a deity is of supreme importance. This spiritual connection allows them to better understand the motives and will of their deity and to more capably and earnestly enact the deity's desire. Deities can be of any ethos or morality, from good to evil and from lawful to chaotic. All the deities have priests and devotees who serve and worship them, but the cleric is always of like mind and nature as the deity they worship. They never falter in carrying out their duties lest they face the most horrible of retribution and suffer the interminable revenge of an angered and betrayed power. Typically, a cleric wields the same weapon or type of weapon favored by the character's deity or pantheon. They do this to better follow the precepts of and emulate their deity. Beyond these, clerics prefer to use those weapons that allow them a better chance to subdue and convert enemies instead of killing them outright. Through this, they gain converts and servants to serve them, and thence their deity. On the field of battle, where clerics spend much of their lives, they wear any armor necessary to see them through the day and on to victory. Clerics who generally act in ways opposed to their deity's alignment and purposes and who grossly violate the code of conduct expected by their deity lose the use of all divine abilities and capabilities for advancement, wandering alone and cursed until they atone for their wrongs. Abilities, spells. So a cleric casts divine spells. These spells available are listed on the cleric spell list, which I will refer to after this, and of each spell level per day. I'm sorry. A cleric is limited to a certain number of spells of each spell level per day. The cleric and the druid spells per day table on page 28, which I will refer to, page 28 for clerics, shows the number of spells per day a character of that class may cast. Clerics prepare spells each day through prayer to their deity or deities, followed by contemplation and study. Bonus spells. High wisdom indicates a greater divine connection. Clerics with a high wisdom gain bonus spells. If they have a wisdom of 13 to 15 or higher, they receive an extra first level spell. If the wisdom score is a 16 or higher, 17, they receive an extra second level spell. And if an 18 or 19, an extra third level spell. Bonus spells can only be acquired if the cleric is at a high enough level to cast them. Bonus spells are cumulative, right? So if you have an 18 wisdom, you're going to get an extra first level, second level, and third level spell. Turning dead. A cleric has the ability to turn or even destroy undead monsters. To turn undead, a cleric must declare the attempt as an attack and then make a successful wisdom attribute check. The character must display a holy symbol toward the undead and utter a prayer, chant, or other invocation of the character's deity. Turn dead is considered a special attack and takes 1 round. Turn undead has a maximum range of 60 feet. Turning undead consists of channeling divine power. The ability to channel divine power is measured by the cleric's own willpower. Accordingly, charisma, not wisdom, affects the number of undead creatures that are turned with a successful turn undead check. In most cases, the number of the undead turned will be D12 plus the cleric's charisma modifier. When a cleric is 5 or more levels higher than the undead being turned, the undead are instead destroyed. So much easier way to measure. You don't need that chart like as an AD&D where the turning, you don't know whether you turn them or you destroy them. You have to check a chart. This is just based on level comparison, which is a much easier, streamlined system. Evil clerics may, instead of turning undead, control them. An evil cleric must be at least 5 levels higher than the hit die of the undead sought to be controlled. Evil clerics can also turn paladins. Turning undead is covered in greater detail in Turning Undead on page 180. Weapons selection. A cleric is only allowed to use certain weapons. They can, if they choose, to pick a weapon off the list that is identical to their major weapon in use by their deity, which they worship. If no single deity is worshipped and a pantheon is instead worshipped, weapon selection is limited to the pantheon's major deities or the deity most closely associated with the activities the cleric intends to undertake. So, and here we have the basic stats. So, the prime attribute of a cleric is wisdom. Their hit dice is a D8. I'm sorry. Alignment is any. Their weapons, so they have special, that will be the deity or pantheon weapon, club, crowbill hammer, dagger, light or heavy flail, light hammer, light or heavy mace, morning star, quarterstaff, or warhammer. I'm surprised with dagger. Usually, sharp or bladed weapons are not included unless it's a deity's weapon of choice. Armor is any, and spells, they have abilities of spells and turn dead. They're basic to hit, so these are hit bonuses based on level. So they're a +0 at first level. Then levels 2 and 3, they're a +1. Levels 4 and 5, a +2. 6 and 7, a +3. 8 and 9, a +4. 10 and 11, a +5, and 12 and above, sorry, +6. So they're pretty martial. If you consider it's every 2 levels basically, and on the third level they will go up a an extra plus. So clerics and druids spells per day, so they're combined, so it doesn't matter which class it is. They both use the same chart. And so a first level cleric will have zero level 0 spells, orisons, 3 of them per day, and a first level spell. So one first level spell. So not like old school D&D where a first level cleric has no spell casting ability. So let's take a look at these spells. So I'm going to switch here, and I'm going to make sure that we are on this. All right, so here we go. I had to switch back and forth between the two. So let's take a look at these 0 level clerical spells. So orisons, they can create water, creates 2 gallons per day of pure water. They can detect alignment, reveals aura of creatures, spells, or objects. They can detect magic. They can detect poison. They can endure elements. First aid, which bandages a bleeding wound, so it will stop bleeding. Doesn't heal it, but it stops the wound from continuing to bleed. So if a character is bleeding out, there's a potential using this to stop it. Light, object shines like a torch. Purify food and drink, purifies 1 cubic foot per level of food or water. All right, so those are the potential 0 level spells. And here's the first level spells. I'm just going to go through 0 and 1, and then I'll take a look at the highest level spells just to see what's kind of in there. So bless water, makes holy water. So that's a pretty easy thing. There's an asterisk there, so I will double check. Asterisk means that they can be reversed. All right. They can command cure light wounds, which can be reversed. Detect secret doors, reveals hidden doors within 60 feet. Detect undead, invisibility to undead, protection from alignment, and that could be reversed. I guess I'll have to read that description to see what it actually does. Remove fear. Obviously, the reverse is fear. Resist elements. They gain a +2 bonus to saving throws versus selected elements. Sanctuary, which means they cannot be attacked during the duration of that. Shield of Faith grants a +2 bonus to armor class and saving throws. It's pretty powerful. And then Sound Burst, a pulse of sound that causes D8 damage. That may or may not be an area effect. I have not dug that far into these the actual spells. So let's see what the highest level are. So the highest level, 9th level, antipathy, object or location attracts, repels certain creatures. Astral projection, the caster and companions into, so they can project the caster and companions into astral plane. Energy drain, subject loses 2d4 levels. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Gate opens 2 planes for travel or summon. Connects 2 planes. Sorry, connects 2 planes of travel or summoning. Mind blank immunizes against mental, emotional magic and scrying. Soulbind traps newly dead soul to prevent resurrection. Trap the soul. Imprison subject within a gem. And finally, true resurrection. As resurrection where the remains aren't needed. Oh wow, that's pretty powerful. All right, so that's a much improved resurrection. Where does resurrection come in at seventh level. So that's a fully restores uh, a dead subject. So so there you have it. In many ways, it's very similar to your typical D&D character class of cleric. Some differences here, some nuances here, some different spells and such. So that might take a little bit just getting used to and taking a look at how they work. Um, Overall, it's a just like in D&D, it's a pretty solid and necessary class to have in to have in your game. In your game group, it's fairly important to have a healer, a dedicated healer. And when I go back into now, I have previous videos where I talk about magic in Castles and Crusades, and so I refer you back to that. This will be in that playlist, and you can go back and see how the magic works. One thing I wanted to point out is that clerics are very different than shamans. All right, the Monsters and Treasures book, especially with the humanoids, um, talk about shamans, and shamans are different in that they can draw upon either clerical spells, and in some cases, wizard spells, and they can choose from either of the lists, but they are limited not only in the total number of spell levels that they can have, usually up to 24 spell levels, but they can only take each individual spell um, once per day. All right. And when they make their 24 levels worth of spell selections, it's only those spells that they know. So they have a permanent list of spells that they have access to. They can only take one per day of that particular spell. Clerics have much more flexibility where they can choose from their entire selection of of spells based on their level, and yeah, and they can change those up, and they can take more than one cure light wounds, let's say. So I'm going to be really interested to see um, how my players, because a lot of my players are coming from the AD&D campaign over to my Castles and Crusades campaign starting in September, and I'm going to be curious to see how they play differently between the two systems, because they do have some mixing. Even though my new group for Castles and Crusades has three new players to the entire group, so I'm really excited about that as well. So once again, another really great character class, and I really like the way that Castles and Crusades took from AD&D First Edition, looked at some of the aspects of Third Edition, and it's really kind of an in between of those two editions, and it's often been said that if Gary Gygax, along with Troll Lord Games, was creating a new edition of AD&D, this would have been it. All right, so it's kind of it's a bridge between AD&D First Edition and Third Edition D&D. It's in that in between space, and it's not AD&D Second Edition because you don't have all of the secondary abilities and skills and that type of thing. It's much more streamlined than that. So really stoked about running this system with a very large group again. So I'm up to around 9 players. That's where it's going to cap in at, is 9 players, and they have a good mix of character classes and even races as well. There's everything from humans, half elves, dwarves, gnomes, halflings, half orcs. So I think 6 different races are represented in this group. It's going to be, really, really cool to see how that works out. And virtually every character class is represented without duplication. So, or at least not yet without duplication. So, really excited about that as well. So, thanks for joining. I hope you liked this video. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If any questions or comments, leave your questions and comments in there. I virtually almost always answer questions and comments, fairly quickly within 2 days' time. Now, I am going to a convention starting Thursday, so my videos will just be live streams during the course of that convention. So I'm going to try to get the next character class spotlight out for Thursday morning. Before I leave, that'll be Druid. So I'm going alphabetical at this point, and hopefully that runs smoothly and I get that out before I have to actually leave. So as always, thanks for joining. Enjoy the rest of your week. I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon. Maybe I'll meet some of you on, at Rising Phoenix Con in Massachusetts on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'll be there. And as always, thanks for stopping in, and take care.